This is one of the weirdest graphics cards I've ever seen. Now, it actually, from the outside, does look quite normal, but for what it is a very odd spec. This is an nVidia GeForce GT 1030. The OEM of this specific card is Yeston, which is a Chinese brand, kind of like colorful. Now, for me personally, I believe this card defeats the entire purpose of the GT 1030. As you can tell, it is a dual slot card, so it takes up 2 bays. It has a big fan on it with a small aluminum heatsink, small being it's short, with HDMI and DVI. Now, for what a GT 1030 is it's more than a GT 710, which is practically just a graphics adapter for a second monitor. This is technically a GPU, and you can run games on it, and you can do compute stuff with it. But for why most people would buy a GT 1030 is to throw it in an HP, a Dell, a Lenovo pre-built, which usually are only accepting of low profile cards. This is not low profile, and it's also a dual slot card, which most GT 1030s are single slot low profile, or at least have a swappable faceplate that is low profile. This is a full-size card. Now, the oddness of this card, the weirdness, does not stop with the cosmetics. This is a 4 gig 1030. When I was first searching for a GPU for my Inspiron, I did not know they made 4 gig 1030s at all. Now, another odd thing about this is it's not GDDR5, and it's not GDDR4 either. This is DDR4, like what comes in your computer, DDR4. This is just regular old PC DDR4. Now, on the back of this label, right here, it says Yeston GT 1030 4G D4, so 4 gig DDR4. So it's a very odd card, and I'll read you the specs here. So this is a GPU 108 GPU built on the 14 nanometer process. This is a Pascal card. So this is part of the official 10 series, and this is not even the lowest of the 10 series. There is a 1010, but they don't make those anymore. This is the only Pascal era card I believe that they still make. nVidia still makes Kepler era cards with the 710 and 720 and 730, but this is a Pascal card. It has 384 unified shaders with a bus width of 64 bits, which for a normal GDDR5 card might bottleneck it, but with this slower DDR4, it's totally fine. And the bandwidth of that bus is 16.8 gigabits per second. It has a base, the GPU itself has a base clock of 1152 and a boost of 1380. And that is specific to the DDR4 cards. The GDDR5 cards are a little bit faster because of the faster memory. I'm not going to take apart this card just for fear of breaking it, because I actually do use this in my system. I don't understand this card at all. I don't understand who it was made for. Because if you're a person who has the space for a dual height, full-size card, why would you get a GT 1030 when you can pay a little more and get a 1050, a 1650, The only thing this has going for it is that it runs off the 75 watts of the PCI 16X slot, but then again, so does the 1650, so there's no point to this card. I just didn't have the budget for a 1650, and plus a 1650 would create a bottleneck in my CPU, with my computer with my CPU, and this is actually very close to performance of my CPU. So, with that intro over, let's get into some games, shall we? Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to test everything because I don't want to install Fortnite, but I do have GTA 5, GTA 4, Bioshock, CSGO, Trackmania. I have some games we can test. And now, unfortunately, another weird thing about this card is it doesn't have hardware video encoding. So I'm going to have to point my camera at my monitor, and we'll have to watch it like that. Just another odd quirk of the GT 1030, which would have been fine on a 2 gig cheaper card, but I don't know. Ask Yeston. They might have answers for you. But yeah, let's get into those games. Before we get into those games, let me just show you how this installs in my Inspiron. So I have my PCIe 16x slot, and right below it a 1x slot. I was going to use that for a sound card, but it's dual height, so nope, can't use that. And then down here is just 2 PCI slots. So the card just goes right in. It's very simple to install. This was before the days of Dell's OEM bullcrap. So this is a super easy install, and then put the little cover back on it, and get the screw, and we'll be good to go to fire this sucker up. Just screw it in, and then because I am running the original Dell monitor, I have to use DVI, but it does have an HDMI port on the back, which will be useful down the road when I do upgrade my monitor. And just screw in the pegs, and here we go. There you go. And for our first game, we have BeamNG Drive. Now in the menu, we're getting about 700 FPS. So that's something. But let's load just grid map, because we are loading a large game off of a hard drive. If I wanted to, and I probably will, speed this up in post, but currently in the loading screen we're getting 3 FPS. And here we are in game. So after everything just loaded in real quick, I have the graphics preset set to the low. Not lowest and not normal, but set to low. So as you can see, we're getting about 60 frames per second, and that shows on screen. So my CPU is maxed out at 100% because it's running the Lua engine, which is the physics engine for this game, and my GPU is sitting at about anywhere from 60 to 100%, but it's only using about 15 watts, and having a little hitching. But this game is completely playable on this setup. So let's get into our next game, GTA 5. And here we are into the game. I do have a lot of stuff turned down, not all the way down, but down to more reasonable settings, and we're getting a good 30 FPS just walking around on the beach here. A little bit of a different story when we get into cars, only because of a CPU bottleneck. So if we hop in real quick, when you drive fast, the CPU has a hard time keeping up with loading in objects. So it's not a GPU problem, it is a CPU problem, like right here. This is a CPU bound issue, but it is not in any way the fault of the GPU. And if you ignore the textures, it's totally playable at 30 FPS. This is how you'd play it on a console. This is about how it'd be on a PS3, honestly. no better than that. And driving around like this, getting all these frames, we're doing about 13 watts from the GPU, so a little better than BeamNG Drive. But yeah, I opened the game immediately and started driving around, so the CPU hasn't had time to load and everything. But on to our next game, Trackmania Nations Forever. So this is all I got from Trackmania Nations Forever. I'm not sure what's going on here. We have a cursor, but all there is a white screen with my CPU pegged at 100% and my GPU at 70-ish% with 600 and some frames. So I'm not entirely sure what is going on here, but obviously the game is broken and this is all I have. So next game, Counter-Strike. Alright, here is Counter-Strike, and I wasn't able to get the overlay from Afterburner to show up, so we're stuck with this. But, you know, we'll just play CSGO, practice with bots, easy bots because I'm bad, and we'll just play Dust too. So obviously, as you can tell in the menu, we were getting what appeared to be a good 60 FPS. But that is also, once again, the menu. Alright, and here we go. Plays the counter-terrorist because I'm not a bad guy. Really good frames in here. Walk outside. A little bit of a frame drop. I do have some settings turned down, but they're not on the lowest they can be. And I'm getting absolutely wasted because I suck at FPSs. But yeah, this is CSGO. Totally playable on this system. So on to our next game, BioShock 1 Remastered. So I had a little bit of a smooth brain moment and forgot that I did not have BioShock 1 installed. I have both 1, 2, and Infinite, but I do not have them installed. So we're going to actually just look at the new Trackmania. So in the menu, we're getting about anywhere from 60 to 130 FPS. And we'll just play the campaign. We'll just play number 1 of Spring. And as you see while it loads, using about 15 watts, and the GPU is actually almost pegged at 100. Or was. My CPU isn't even pegged at 100 either. It's about from 80 to 99. So, promising. But I don't have high hopes, honestly. This is a new game in an old computer. While this is loading, I'd like to comment on this amazing music. Nations Forever has nothing this cool. Alright, we will play Bronze, because I'm bad. And we're getting about 30 frames, which is playable, but for anyone who plays, what's the word I want to use? Not competitively, but, well, yeah, I guess competitively, this would not be enough frames for frame perfect movements and the such. It's good enough for me because I can't really tell the difference, but let's challenge Gold real quick and see if I'm good enough and the frame rate's good enough. We're pulling about anywhere from 16 to 18 watts. GPU is absolutely pegged right now, and my CPU is also pegged, but we're getting good frames, so I cannot complain. We are using almost all of my 8 gigs of RAM, but it's playable. And I'm really bad, so that's what you get. But I'm not here to show you my skills. I'm here to show you my GPU. So yeah, that's gonna be it for video game testing. Let's get into my final thoughts now. So then, what are my thoughts on the GT 1030 4GB DDR4 from Yeston? I think that Yeston knew that one day Rylan Clarkson would need a GPU for his 2007 Dell Inspiron 8GB DDR2 with a Core 2 Duo E8600 at 3.33 gigahertz. I think they specifically knew that, so they made this card specifically for me. Jokes aside, I still don't understand this card. I don't understand why it exists, but I'm really glad that it pairs well with my CPU. I don't know. I really like this card. I find it very endearing that a little budget GPU can be dressed up to play with the big boys. I just find this a very endearing card, and also it just performed very well for me. The temperatures stay amazing with this big old fan and heatsink. I don't think it's ever reached above 40 degrees under maximum load. I just think this is a really good card. If you want to buy one, I will have the link down to the Newegg listing down in the description of this video. If you have a Dell Inspiron 530 with a Core 2 Duo E8600 in it, anything more I think would be an issue. Anything less would also be an issue, but I believe this is a really good card for these Dell Inspirons, because it doesn't require any external power. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, and this probably won't be the last time you'll see this card, but yeah, this has been my video on this very strange GT 730. This has been RNC Games. Peace.